Hi, welcome to Oma's No Sugar Kitchen.
Oregano.
These high-protein pumpkin muffins are so good, sticky and sweet and soft. No one will know you didn't use sugar. The secret is dates. I'm going to use 8 medjool dates for each dozen muffins. And we're going to chop these up after taking the pit out of the center, and they will make these muffins sticky and sweet. And this entire batter will be made in the food processor. I'll show you how I'm going to do that. I have my 8 whole dates here, and I use the whole ones instead of already chopped ones because the whole ones still have their moisture quality in them. They're already a little sticky. And so when you pull them open, you see the pit inside, and you remove that. And then I chop them lengthwise into quarters, and then I turn it and chop them up, and I put them in my food processor. The whole dates still have all of their nice moisture in there, and they're still sticky. Once they've been cut up and stored on a grocery store shelf, they lose that. And so I really want this in there. I want this to be part of the moist results on my pumpkin muffins. So this is just chopping them up to help the food processor deal with them a little better. And you're going to want to preheat your oven to 375 for an electric oven and 380 for a gas oven. These go together pretty quickly, so you want that oven nice and hot by the time you're done. Once I've taken the pits out and chopped up all my dates, I put them all in my food processor. And I'm going to start with a tablespoon of purified water. At first, it sounds like you are mixing up tennis shoes in a dryer. But if you're patient and you run your food processor, the dates will break down into smaller pieces. So once I have processed them a little bit, I will add the second tablespoon of water. And what I want to end up with is small pieces of dates before I continue mixing up my batter. While I'm processing those, I'm going to put the recipe up here for you, and I'm going to leave it up here for a little bit so we can talk about it. Now, I'm making mine with a heaping cup of almond flour plus 2 tablespoons and then a half a cup of all-purpose flour. You can make these with just almond flour. You'll want to use 1 3/4 cups of almond flour only, and that makes a no-wheat version. The only difference is they come out a little less fluffy, a little more dense, but they are still really good, nice and soft and sweet and sticky, and they're wonderful. We use a tablespoon of Greek yogurt because when you're cooking with almond flour, it doesn't really get affected by the baking soda that you put in there as a leavener. But if you put in yogurt, that reacts with the baking soda and it makes the muffins come out much fluffier. And instead of sugar, we're going to use a mixture of low-glycemic natural syrups to sweeten this. So between the fiber in the dates and the pumpkin and the low-glycemic syrups, these muffins don't produce a sugar spike for me. And there is my date mixture with just dates and water. Now I can move on to the rest of the batter. Now I'm going to soften my 1 stick of butter, or half a cup, for about 20 seconds in the microwave. I don't need it to melt, I just want it to soften a little so it'll mix better with the dates. Then I can put that in the food processor and mix it up. The whole time I'm putting this batter together, you will notice I open the food processor and scrape down the sides a lot. That helps the processor mix all this together better. And what I want to see is little tiny bits of dates all through the butter before I move on. Now I can add my 2 eggs to the food processor. And then I'm going to blend that well until the eggs look creamy. I'll show you. And of course, once the eggs are creamy, I scrape down the sides. Next, I add a teaspoon of vanilla. and about 2/3 of a cup of canned pumpkin. So when I buy a small can of pumpkin, I usually make 2 batches of these muffins. That way I can use up the whole can of pumpkin. I blend that well and scrape down the sides and then blend it again. I'm going to show you my mixture of low glycemic natural syrups, but you could blend it however you want. So I'm using 2 tablespoons of melted butter, 2 tablespoons of molasses. If you really love molasses, you could make this just molasses and butter and skip the other syrups if you want. I don't want the molasses flavor to take over though. So I've got 2 tablespoons of molasses and I'm mixing it with the warm melted butter. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of coconut syrup. And if you like these less sweet, I would say use 1 tablespoon of each thing in the mixture. I'm using 2. I actually made these for my husband's crewmates at work, so I made them a little sweet. And then I have 2 tablespoons of agave syrup. This time I'm using the light agave syrup. You could also use the dark agave syrup. And I have 1 teaspoon of vanilla. That is about 1/2 cup of the syrup mixtures for the 12 muffins. And I pour that into the food processor. And then I add a tablespoon of the Greek yogurt, which will help the baking soda rise the muffins for me. And then blend well, and of course, scrape down the bowl as you go. And that is all of the wet ingredients into the food processor. So once those are all well blended, it's time to add all of the dry ingredients. And I'm going to start with a heaping cup of almond flour plus 2 tablespoons. Now my camera died right before I put the 2 tablespoons in there, but there's 2 extra tablespoons of almond flour in there. And then I used 1/2 cup of all-purpose wheat flour and a teaspoon of baking soda and 2 teaspoons of salt. And again, if you wanted to make this with just almond flour, it's a heaping 1 3/4 cups of almond flour. Then I'm going to add the pumpkin pie spice, a tablespoon of it, 2 teaspoons of the ground cinnamon, a teaspoon of ground ginger, and some freshly planed nutmeg. Now you could buy ground nutmeg and it would work just as well. The freshly planed ground nutmeg has a lighter flavor. They add oils to the ground nutmeg, which makes it really strong. If you're using that, I would back off of it and just use maybe 1/2 teaspoon. Blend all this well together. Scrape down the sides. And then basically your batter for your muffins is done. Run it one more time. And then I can fill my muffin cups. I didn't put the pecans in the recipe because they're optional. I like to decorate the top of each one with a little pecan half on top. I have these muffin liners, and I'm going to use 1/4 cup of the batter in each muffin. Once I put that in, I usually have a couple of tablespoons left, and I just spread that out over all 12 muffins when I'm done. Make a little swirl on the top. I'll show you. I just put it into the 1/4 cup measurement. And then I use a spoon to scrape it into the muffin liner. And once I do the last one, I scrape down the bowl and I add little ones that look like, if there's some that look like they're not as full as others, I add a little extra to it. And then I add my pecan half on top of each one. I like that they don't sink in and they provide a little bit of a crunch when you first bite into the muffin. So these go into the oven at 375 for an electric oven and 380 for a gas oven for about 15 minutes. And then I'm going to set it to the convection setting, which is where the fan runs in the background, for the last 4 to 6 minutes. This helps them get evenly browned across the top. And then look, they come out so beautiful. And my whole house smells like pumpkin spice cake. Are you filming?
Yeah.
Okay. Want it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll give you the nut side. I want to show how moist these are. Look, it's sticking to my knife. But I want to show how moist these are inside. Look at that. Here, cameraman, you have the nut one.
Okay. Yum.
They're so good.
Mm-hmm.
This makes my original pumpkin bread. I mean, it gives my original pumpkin bread a run for its money, don't you think?
Yeah, it does.
It's the dates in there that makes it so moist. It's like a sticky spice cake. Thanks, honey. Thank you for making these wonderful diabetic-friendly, low-glycemic, and high-protein pumpkin muffins with me. And happy holidays from Oma's No Sugar Kitchen. Thank you for joining me in Oma's Kitchen. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll upload more tasty videos soon, and a special shout out to Moon Pie and Lil Bit. Till next time.